Hello, hello, preschool teachers. Welcome. Are you wondering how to motivate children, how to encourage open ended play and investigation without breaking the budget on expensive educational materials? Well, you're in luck. I'm Nicole Dravillas Fravel. This is Wildwood Teaching. Welcome. Every once in a while here at Wildwood Teaching, I focus on one natural loose part, something you don't have to pay for, and kind of take you through different ways that you could set up provocations and opportunities for learning for the children using that particular loose part. And so today, ironically, I am going to be talking about using the sun as a loose part. And I say ironically because I don't know if it comes through the screen, but it is raining behind me. It is the Pacific Northwest. It is June, which is wildly unpredictable. We do get rain. I am bundled up in my warm coat. But hopefully the sun will arrive soon and I'll be able to use these activities with children. And so as we go through it, keep in mind that most of the time at Wildwood Nature School, I don't demarcate our learning opportunities by subject. Like now we're learning math, and now we're learning science, now we're learning literacy, because it's not how children approach something. They don't have these subjects in their head. But I do kind of break it down for you. Just as teachers, sometimes it's easier for us to think about, what might the children be practicing or learning through this particular opportunity? However, with the sun, as a loose part, there's going to be even more overlap. So if I introduce a particular activity and I introduce it and say, this is for practicing science, and you're thinking, no, it's really about literacy, it's really about math, that's perfect. That is as it should be. So let's get started. And so first I am going to start off with evaporation. And now I have evaporation listed here as a sensory activity because children are just going to dip a paintbrush in some water and paint their designs on a chalkboard, on a sidewalk, on a rock, on whatever hard surfaces that you have. And then let it evaporate. So it is a sensory activity, but yes, also a science activity. You could turn it into a math activity by estimating and then counting how long is it going to take for my design to disappear, right? And then turn it into science by experimenting with different locations, right? What if I do it in the shade? What if I do it in the sun? What happens with the difference between painting on wood or painting on rock? You could also get the little eyedroppers or pipettes and take a drop of water and do the same thing. How long does it take to evaporate? You could also take some ice cubes, place them on different surfaces. There's my chalkboard. Here's my tray, right? Same thing, counting and estimating. You could bring tools into it, right? You could take the temperature of various objects, right? In the sun, in the shade, on metal, on wood. And what is the thermometer doing on different surfaces? And that's using tools, but it's also understanding measurement as a math topic. Okay. And like I said, we already talked about how that could all be science experiments. We've also talked about, and this was an experiment that children designed where we were looking at heat absorption of different colors. And so we took different colored construction paper, set them out in the sun, set thermometers on top of them. You have to leave it for a while until the thermometer starts to react. And sometimes they're very subtle differences. But this was something that the children noticed because we sit on yoga mats, and they had noticed that, oh, Aurelia's purple mat really is a lot warmer than Alexon's yellow mat. What's going on here? And so they themselves had noticed the colors and wanted to do some experimenting with it. But that's an idea you could take and do. You could also make a pinhole camera. And so to make a pinhole camera, basically you just make a pinhole in a paper. I have the children do it. I usually talk to them ahead of time about where to hold their fingers, to go slowly, to only hold the top part of the safety pin. And you really want a very small hole. And then you're going to hold a white piece of paper on the ground. I'm not going to be able to do it today because I don't have any sun. But you want to encourage the children not to look through the hole, but to hold the hole above their white paper so that they are capturing the sun, letting it shine through the hole, and getting a photograph of the sun and the sun spots on their paper. Once you've mastered the basic pinhole, you could try asking the children to see what happens if you put a bunch of pinholes on your paper. Okay. You can also make what I call shadow art. And that is to take a piece of construction paper. We're going to make a sun print, but you don't need fancy sun print paper. This works really well with cheap construction paper. Don't buy the Fadeless kind. And when we do have sun, it's going to depend on your sun. But when we do have sun, honestly, this takes about 20 minutes before things start to fade. But they're just going to lay out natural objects onto their paper. And as the sun heats up the paper, it's going to fade the paper around the objects and leave a negative image of the objects. You may have to experiment, depending on your area and how strong the sun is that day, on how long it's actually going to take. We've also done sunscreen art. And you can see a sample of this on my Instagram. But basically, again, you're just going to take the construction paper and have the children use the sunscreen like paint. You can use a paintbrush to apply it, or they can, if it's a squirt kind, they can squirt it right out of the bottle. And you're going to leave this out in the sun. And again, where the sunscreen is should block the paper from fading. So it's a nice introduction to why we use sunscreen, the efficacy of sunscreen. I could see turning this into a science experiment as well. Different brands of sunscreen, different SPF levels, and what is happening to the paper because of that. Now, I'm going to raise this up here a little bit. If you want to use the sun for literacy, I have the children make simple shadow puppets. You could have them make any shape they want. I find that using stencils it just helps a little bit, because once they make a shadow, you're not going to get all of the details. So you need something that's a pretty simple design and that has kind of crisp edges. But making that shadow puppet, tracing the stencil, cutting it out. Those are all some good fine motor practice. And then once they have the shadow puppet, they can make the shadows on the ground to tell their own stories, to retell stories that you've told in class. I also have attached to this video a list of folklore from around the world about the sun. How did the sun get into the sky? Why is it light? And so exploring stories and myths about the sun from around the world is a way to bring in literacy. I've also had children sometimes take interesting shadows that nature is creating and take pictures of them. And then we turn that into a shadow book. You can make it simple nonfiction, right? This is a shadow of a tree. This is a shadow of a rock. This is a shadow of me. Or children can turn it into more of a narrative story of where the shadow is traveling that day. So these are a few of my ideas to use the sun as a loose part. Don't spend a lot of money on things and be able to incorporate a whole bunch of domains at the same time. And we can explore literacy and science and math all at the same time. If this intrigues you, I want to invite you to a series of free webinars that I am doing in the middle of June. I have one on June 16th, one on June 18th, and one on June 19th, where I will be talking more about some summer STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math ideas. Simple, no to low prep, using what is naturally available to us in the summer. The recording there will be a recording. I will offer the webinar live. It will be recorded, but this time the recording is only going to be available for a limited basis. So if you can't make it live, that's fine, but you only have a couple of days to access the recording before it goes away. So choose your date wisely. There should be above my head one link to join, but then also below the video will be the 3 different options. So you will need to register for the webinar on the day that you hope to attend. So I hope to see you there at the webinar, and then I hope to see you here next week for another episode of Wildwood Teaching. I will see you there.